Hey everybody, it's your man James, Mr. Sequential Treasures, back again with some more video action for you. Today's a little oldie but a goodie here for you. I did a live stream not too long ago with a very special guest, as you'll see here. And we talked about a few things during this live stream, but one of the interesting ones was we talked about the speculation of some upcoming comics that might jump up in value due to the news we've heard about the MCU with Robert Downey Jr. being Doctor Doom in the upcoming Fantastic Four movie. And so on this live stream, me and them got together and we talked about some books that I thought were minor keys that might jump up in value. Some reasons for why that is explained in the video. So I did the work for you and I trimmed it all out. And so now here it is, just us speculating on some awesome comic stuff. So I thought you guys would enjoy checking all that out. So here it is for you, and make it easy. And I hope you guys get some fun out of this, because I certainly had some fun doing it. And I will have more stuff for you later. So enjoy, everyone, and I will talk to you soon. This is something I saw my friend Pops talk about a couple days ago. He was talking about some low-priced key books that might be moving up in value soon because of the FF movie and Robert Downey Jr.'s Doom.
All right.
And he was talking about like some certain key issues that aren't that expensive right now that might be jumping up because if these movies are any good. So I thought that's a good idea. Maybe I could talk about that, but I don't want to talk about the big keys. Like everyone would say, like, Fantastic Four #5, the first Doctor Doom, of course that's going to go up, And you got the female Silver Surfer, so the first Silver Surfer, the 48 through 50, those are all going to go up. The first Surfer in Galactus, of course, those are going to go up. Of course they will. But I don't want to talk about the obvious ones. I'll talk about a few off the beaten path that are what I call minor keys. They're not like super big books, but like they're big enough that they might get a bump because of the movies. And so we're gonna check in on some of those now. So let me share the screen here.
I'll definitely have an opinion on these.
Yeah, I know you will. That's why you're here. And we're gonna start it off right here with FF 296, the 25th anniversary issue, not just of the Fantastic Four, but of Marvel Comics. And this is the issue that brought the team back together if they had been broken apart without the 4 key members together for several years. So this brought them all back. You've got great art from guys like Barry Windsor-Smith, John Buscema, Ron Frenz, Al Milgrom, Klaus Janson. I mean, just like a horrid host of artists worked on this. And of course, you have a plot by Jim Shooter and a script by Stan the Man Lee. So, I mean, to me, this is like a book that people will be interested in because of what it represents, bringing the team together again, as well as the fact it's an anniversary issue, as well as you got all these great talents on it. And I think this is a book to watch because I think it's going to move up a little more than people might think it otherwise would. And I think this is going to be the one of the ones to watch. What about you, man? What do you think?
Well, I picked this one. I love this. I think it was it a month or a couple months where they did these square covers like this with the headshots in them. I love those.
With everybody, that was 1 month. It was dated November, but it came out July of '86. Was this quarter?
Yes, and this, of course, Barry Smith cover, Barry Smith interiors. That's why I picked it up. I think very well you could see some movement on this book because of the cover, because it fits in with that whole month. There's a lot of good covers, but the one thing that I'm always weary about anything post 1980 is the availability in high grade, and I think there's a ton of these out there in high grade because everybody, when comics started going through comic shops, everybody started taking care of their books, and so it's harder to find. It's not as hard to find high-grade copies of these books. However, I will agree with you. This is probably undervalued, and it's probably something you can get pretty cheap right now, and it's certainly worth taking a gamble on if you don't have it, because it's a great issue just in and of itself, and not that expensive at the moment. So there you go. So there's me in agreement with James.
That's what this is. All these picks I've pulled out are all ones I think people are sleeping on if they don't try to get one now while they are still relatively inexpensive, because I think most, if not all, these are going to get at least, if not like a super jump in value, at least a little bump if the movies come out and they don't totally suck.
No, they don't suck, which is always
that's always the key. That's the gamble part, yes. But another one we have from your good friend
Paul Ryan.
Paul Ryan, issue 381 of Fantastic Four. This is the one where Doom and Reed apparently die, and I think again, considering what we're going to see with Doom and the Fantastic Four and all this stuff, that could be a key for something, with seeing the two main characters taken out. And this is someone I think people, again, another one's not very expensive. It doesn't cost a whole lot to get it, but it could be a key in the future because of the death factor of the characters involved.
This I'm always wary of newer books, and by newer books I mean, again, anything post 1980. This was probably pushing what, 1990? Was this early 90s maybe?
This is like 93, I think.
Yeah, so Paul had a really nice run on the FF. There was a lot of good stuff in there. Whether or not I mean, again, it's a cheap book, so you don't have anything to lose when you're talking about, potential investment. Again, I think it's harder for these books because the availability of them is so great and high grade. However, with, the events you're talking about taking place in the issue and the FF movie, again, if it's good and it gets good buzz as we get closer to release date, you very well could see the interest in these things rise.
Exactly. So, and next up, Silver Surfer Volume 2, Number 1, the one-shot issue by John Byrne and Stan Lee. Now, you're saying, why this issue, James? Well, because we've all heard there's going to be a female Silver Surfer in the movie. And they're going to make that female Silver Surfer Shala Bal, which is Silver Surfer's girlfriend. This issue could be a sleeper to me because in this issue is the one where Mephisto brings her to Earth to try to torment the Surfer, but when he defeats him, he sends her back to Zenn-La. But before he does, the Surfer imparts a small bit of his cosmic power to her so she can bring life back to the planet of Zenn-La that was ravaged by Galactus after Silver Surfer betrayed him. And so this is the first cosmically powered Shala Bal. And so, again, if the movie is good and people like the female Silver Surfer, the Shala Bal, this issue could be a sleeper hit because this is the first time she has superpowers is in this issue of having cosmic ability. So I think this could be a sleeper hit that people are going to be sleeping on.
I think this is your best pick so far. I think this book is already undervalued just because of the talent involved in it. It's a Silver Surfer, as you said, John Byrne. I was unaware of the Shala Bal connection in the story because I don't know if I have this or not, but I'm glad you brought it up because I'm going to get one now. Because I would hate for this.
Look, the value's already going up. Aaron's going to buy one.
But I think there's a couple of these like Surfer one shots that I think are horribly undervalued, and I think this is one of them. Will it take off? I don't know, but I think as an investment potential at the price you could get it at, it's a no-brainer. Might as well. Plus, John Byrne, Silver Surfer. Come on. So
can't beat that. So up next, speaking of female Silver Surfers, Fantastic Four 244, the first Frankie Ray Nova, who basically is just a female Silver Surfer. She's got the silvery skin and she's got cosmic powers. She's the Herald of Galactus. It all still kind of works. Now, granted, she's not the Surfer, but again, for a character that is very Surfer-like and is actually a true female Herald of Galactus, the way she's going to be in the movie, again, this is another one I think could be a sleeper hit that people are sleeping on right now, that people aren't paying a lot of attention to it because, no one really thinks too much about the Byrne FF run anymore. And so this is an issue that could slide in under the radar, and all of a sudden, before you know it, oh, wow, this book used to be like $10, and now it's like $25. What happened? You see? Because I think, again, if the movies work out, this could be an issue that could move up in value.
Well, I think it's you got a Galactus appearance. You've got this new Herald appearance on the cover here. Byrne. I think getting a book like this is a good idea, regardless if it takes off, because at some point you got to feel like a book like this would show some improvement. And again, you're going back to the 80s, so it's a little bit older. Again, same with all these books so far. Condition and availability are both high on all these books. But that doesn't mean, we see that all the time where books that are available seem to do really well. And so again, as a sleeper pick, I think this is a good pick. I think you're right on it, James.
Thank you very much. And we'll go on to the next one here. Now, this is Silver Surfer Annual 1. Now, again, you're saying, what's the big deal with this one? Well, it's not for the main feature you see here with the Surfer fighting the Super Skrull and the Eternals. That's not what it's for. There's a backup story in here. that focuses on Frankie Ray Nova, her first solo story of Nova. And it also happens to be, just by coincidence, the first Silver Surfer related artwork by Ron Lim. So I think for those reasons, this one also is another who could be a little bit of a sleeper, because again, it's Nova's first solo story of her own. She's not guest starring with the Fantastic Four. She's not guest starring with the Surfer. It's her story. And so it's kind of the focus is on her. And I think, again, that could be a little bit of something that could get people interested if the female Silver Surfer in the movie is well done, and people tend to like that.
I think this is because of the reasons you just mentioned. I think this is a good book to have. It's one of those just in case things, it's a first, you got some firsts in it, and, just on the offhand that it might take off at some point. And again, it's probably a very cheap book to get at the moment. And the cover's horrific, so that doesn't help it. But the interesting thing is, for some reason, annuals don't ever seem to respond, with the exception of Giant Size X-Men #1. Annuals don't really respond as well as issues from the regular series in the market, and I don't really understand that. A good example is, if you take a look at this is an older book, Silver Age book, but it's FF Annual. Which one is it? #5, I think. With I've got it. I don't know why I can't remember what it is, but it has first appearance of Psycho Man in it. But it has a backup story, which is the first solo Silver Surfer story ever, is in it, and it has some value in near mint. It's like a $500 book, but you'd think, first solo Silver Surfer story, why isn't it worth more? And for some reason, those annuals don't seem to do as well in the marketplace. But again, you're looking at a book that's dirt cheap right now. I'm assuming. I haven't looked at the price guide on it.
None of these are very expensive. I'd say these are all like maybe $20 or less for everything.
So it's like, why not roll the dice on it? And because it does have, like I said, first Ron Lim Silver Surfer work in it, and this first solo story. So again, I don't think it's a bad bet.
I don't either. So, and I do agree. The cover is a little weak. They could have done something a little more dynamic, I think. And I think that's another thing that they do with if you notice in a lot of annuals, the covers are never usually that great compared to like what you see on the regular monthly series. I think
they almost always are sticking new guys in the annuals, right, to fill them out. That's where I got most of my work when I first broke in, and that stuff wasn't stuff I'm bragging about today. But hey, got to start someplace.
Very true. Now, this one, again, should be an obvious one for obvious reasons. You got Robert Downey Jr., who was Iron Man. He's now going to be Dr. Doom. What better than the ultimate Iron Man versus Dr. Doom issue 150 of Iron Man? You got John Romita Jr. on top with Rob Layton. You have Dave Michelini with the awesome story. And it's just Doom versus Iron Man. And it's just, so like, again, because the thing they're talking about with Robert Downey Jr. is he Victor Von Doom? Or is he perhaps Tony Stark from an alternate timeline in the multiverse who becomes Dr. Doom? Or is it Victor Von Doom who transferred his mind into Tony Stark's body, and now he controls Tony Stark's body? And so it's Victor Von Doom technically, but it's Tony Stark's body. All this stuff is going on. So it's like any kind of like clash when you get with these two, where you find an issue like this where it's the two of them at odds. It's definitely something I think people are going to be wanting to check into and invest much more into if the movies are any good.
This is got everything going for it. It's 150th issue, so it's kind of an anniversary issue, not a big anniversary issue like a 100th issue, but it still would be considered an anniversary issue. It's a black cover, so you're less likely to you're more likely to find covers with creases in it that show. So you get a high grade.
You can even see right down here on the one that I found. Right there, you can see that little crease in the bottom corner.
Yep. And then you got Doom facing off with Iron Man. So everything about this.
It's one of the most iconic Iron Man covers ever done.
Yeah. So this got a lot going for it. Again, this would have been probably mid 80s. 75 cents.
No, I think early 80s, like 80.
Oh yeah, because it's a double issue, right? So this goes back a ways. Interestingly enough,
80 or 81, I think, is where this is at. So it's like very early 80s.
Interestingly enough, I picked up not too long ago, Iron Man number 100, which has the Jim Starlin cover and has big 100 behind Iron Man. And that's a book that, just because of the Starlin cover and just because it's the 100th anniversary issue, is a collectible book. It's about $100. This 150, so this is what, 4 or 5 years later, but still early 80s. I think this has potential as well. Iron Man has never been a great collector book, with the exception of Iron Man number 1, which for some reason is, out of all the 1968 titles, that's the one that's worth the most. But this Doctor Doom crossover makes this an interesting book to get in on. And again, I agree with you. I think it has potential.
And I like Blackjack's comment here. That's John Romita Jr. before he started giving everyone 5 o'clock shadow. And it's like, well, I think that'd be kind of hard to do with guys who are wearing metal masks over their face. It's kind of hard to show a 5 o'clock shadow when you're wearing a metal helmet.
Exactly.
But since this one that we both agree is one that will go up, I'm thinking this is also another one to watch, is the Iron Man 250, where they got together again with him and Doom. Whereas in 150, they went into the past and saved Camelot. Here they go to the future to save Camelot. And this one has a little extra something special in Doom finds out Tony Stark is Iron Man in this issue. But here's the kicker. The way they were brought wasn't by science as they were in 150, which was like the time platform sent them back in time. That was science. This was done through magic with Merlin. And Merlin had told them the way the magic works is you cannot take back with you anything you didn't bring with you. So when they went into the future, anything they brought with them was theirs, but anything they learned in the future, they don't get to take back with them. So Doom learns who he is, and then they get sent back, and now he doesn't. But if you watched the issue, if you read it like I did, at the end when Iron Man takes off, Doom is just staying there with just like this almost perplexing look on his face. Like, and so you kind of wonder, did he really forget? Because don't forget, Doom does occult stuff too. Did he cast some spell on himself so that he would be protected, so that he wouldn't forget? Or is it like locked up in his mind somewhere, or what? So I think this issue could be kind of a little bit of a key too, again, with the whole Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, Dr. Doom whole thing. And then you got, I said, the fact of this could be the issue where Doom learned Iron Man with Tony Stark. And so if it turns out that like Doom has put his mind into Stark and taken him over, this could be an issue that could get a little heat on that, because this is where he learned for the first time that Tony Stark was Iron Man.
That's an excellent observation, because a lot of this all comes down to what exactly are they using in the movie and where are they drawing it from. And, there's a lot of different avenues that they could go at this point. And this is certainly one of them, because it makes perfect sense. If you have Doom possessing the body of Tony Stark, this could end up being considered a key if it's where he learns Iron Man is Tony Stark. And just from a reader standpoint, this is, Camelot, you got Merlin in there. I'm already intrigued. So I don't, you haven't brought up one yet, James, that I would disagree with. I think these are all pretty good choices for, speculating, because your investment in them is not a great deal to begin with. So you really don't have anything to lose. And they all look like they're pretty interesting stories.
And so again, and I agree with you, the whole thing, it's really a lot of this is based on the speculation of what are they going to do with Robert Downey Jr. as Doom. Like I said, is he the Victor Von Doom that we all know? Or is he Tony Stark possessed by Von Doom? Is he Tony Stark from an alternate timeline who has become Dr. Doom? There's all these possibilities. So there's all these issues you got to think about. Like, it could be this, it could be that. And in that vein, here we got another one. This is issue 278 of Fantastic Four. This is the retelling of Doom's origin. And on top of that, it's where the kid Kristoff gets his mind implanted with Doom's memories and thoughts. And so basically the engrams of Doom's mind are put over his, and he becomes Dr. Doom. So if it turns out Tony Stark had Doom do that to him in the movie, this could be an issue that people will want to pick up, because here it is Doom doing it to somebody else.
I think any Doom crossover is always or appearance is always a decent bet, because he's such a popular character and arguably Marvel's most popular villain. So and it's a burn issue. Again, a lot of this stuff is laid dormant for quite some time, but there has been for now a couple of years. You've seen growth in Doom appearances. Even before they were speculating on the movie, And now that people are speculating on the movie, any one of these could be something to keep an eye on and potentially invest in. Because again, you're getting into these books right now is pretty darn cheap.
Yes. And again, going with the whole, could this be Tony Stark of an alternate timeline who is now Von Doom? And this is Avengers: The Crossing one-shot special, which, you know, a lot of people consider to be a very horrible story, because in this one, Iron Man turns traitor and he kills Yellow Jacket, not Hank Pym, the female Yellow Jacket who took up the costume and then went into the future with the Guardians of the Galaxy for a while, and then she comes back in time because she gets information there that she wants to tell to Hank Pym to save his life. And when she goes to Avengers Mansion, Iron Man kills her because he has been being messed with by Kang and some others, and they've been doing it to him for years. So it's like been like a long-term plot this is totally going on. So Iron Man goes bad in Avengers: The Crossing. And so if this is Iron Man is Von Doom now, well, then that means he's Iron Man gone bad. And so this could be an issue that people might get some interest in because of the aspect of turning a hero to a villain.
So this is obviously 90s. I can tell by looking at it. I have never seen this book before. Crazy. Is that got like a foil?
It is a foil enhanced cover. Yes.
Interesting. I don't know what this what the interest in this book is at the moment, just because of, you know, are we getting a little bit more? Does this have a little more collector's traction because of the foil on the cover and it's a special thing?
I mean, it made it a more expensive issue. It's got like the fancy cover, of course. I believe it's an oversized issue. It's not just a usual like 22-page pamphlet. It's thicker, so you got more story. But like I said, the key in it is in Avengers, and you don't know it at first. At first, he's in shadow in here, so you don't really see him. But once you go through the story that went through Iron Man and Avengers and Force Works at the time, if you read through that storyline, The Crossing, this is where it begins, and you find out that the one that kills Yellow Jacket is indeed Iron Man. So this issue where he does it, this is where Iron Man goes bad. And so it's kind of like, to me, like kind of, you know, if it turns out that the Iron Man, you know, the Doom in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is Iron Man, if it is Tony Stark, well then that's Tony Stark gone bad, and here it is, he goes bad here.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a 90s book, which we had such inflated print runs on these books that it's probably pretty easy to find. But then again, considering I've never seen it before, maybe it's not as widespread as I would think, just coming from that era. Again, you're probably talking about, I have no idea because I'm completely unfamiliar with this book, but my guess is it's probably not that expensive at the moment. And certainly something that's wouldn't be a bad idea if it requires a cheap investment, just, you know, on the outside chance that maybe there's that connection between Stark in the movie and, you know, what happens here in this book.
Well, here's Creative Faye coming in. I think we're giving them too much credit. It could just be cast. They could just be casting actors that they have contracts with. That's true. That's true. But again, from what and everything I've read about it is they went to him. He didn't come to them. He didn't have a contract at that moment, and they came to him saying, "We need you back." So I mean, they wanted him for this. And when he did his reveal, he says, you know, he goes, "What is it? The armor has changed, but the mission is the same," or something like that. And so, if that's the case, is he talking about Iron Man involvement? So I mean, again, these are things you have to think about when you're doing this kind of stuff, when you're speculating like this.
You got to assume with the Russo brothers involved that it's probably going to be a fairly decent movie, and they're going to put some thought into it and not just pump out crap, because they have the best track record of anybody doing Marvel movies, in my opinion. So, you know, I don't know that they would just, I mean, I hope they didn't get Robert Downey Jr. just because he's Robert Downey Jr., but they have a bigger purpose in mind for him. You know, because it's pretty hard to take somebody as iconic as he has in the role of Iron Man and then have everybody expect to accept him as a different character in the same, you know, universe as it is. So you would think they're aware of that, and they're going to do something in the storyline that it makes sense that.
Well, again, and that's where speculation comes in on some of this stuff like this. Is like, is it Tony Stark from an alternate timeline who is going evil and he's become Dr. Doom? And if that's the case, well, here's Tony Stark going evil.
Right.
And that that could be something that could make this a more valuable. And again, we're talking timelines. The conclusion to that story basically was like this, called Avengers Time Slide. And they bring a young Tony Stark into the present to battle the current Tony Stark, who's been corrupted. And this is Tony before he's corrupted. So again, if we're talking about Iron Man from another timeline, another alternate reality, you know, we can have, again, this is another one that could fall into that same prospect as the Crossing issue does, where you got multiple Tony Starks and stuff.
The trick to investing in comics, of course, is trying to get ahead of the curve. You can always buy the stuff that's already, you know, established and, you know, has some value and probably will increase in value, but those usually are pretty expensive investments. And so the trick is always trying to figure out the books that might take off. And there's only two ways to do that. And that's like, if you buy everything that comes out, so eventually something you bought is going to hit, or you do what you're doing here, James, and picking out books that may or may not have a connection to something that's going to make them go if it hits right. And so again, I think, you know, your reasoning here is pretty decent, pretty sound, in that, again, a cheap book that could possibly turn into something. So, you know, it's certainly worth, I'm sure whatever the investment in this book would, I can't imagine probably more than $10, might be worth the roll of the dice.
And again, in that same vein, here's one more. This is the final clash of Iron Man gone bad versus the new young Iron Man brought to stop him. And so this is their battle. And so again, it's Tony Stark basically kind of fighting himself. And again, it's just, you got two armored guys going at it. And again, you could see something like that in the Doom movie, or even in the Fantastic Four movie, you know, if Doom is in it, you know, because they're probably going to have some cameo in somewhere in there. And so, you know, this is another one, again, just, it could be a sleeper because, again, it's Iron Man goes bad and he battles somebody in armor. And so, I mean, it just kind of has that feel of like, it could go. It's if they're doing stuff in a certain way, if they play this in a certain way and use certain, you know, tropes in that certain way, it could set this off, and this could be an issue people would want to get, because it's, again, Iron Man goes bad and fights an armored person, and, you know.
Regardless, I like this cover a lot. I like that green lighting coming in there, that kicker lighting from the energy on his hand. The anatomy is kind of just funky enough to be interesting. And that's Jim Calafiore, isn't it?
Yeah, Jim Calafiore, yes.
Yeah, so I might pick this up just because I like the cover, and because it is a really interesting cover. I really like that.
Yes, and this is the full cover, front and back. It's a wraparound.
Right, wraparound. Yeah, I dig that. I haven't seen that before.
Be remiss, of course, if you didn't say, again, with the movies, the origin of Galactus, Marvel Saga number 24. I mean, that awesome cover image by Bob Layton, you know, with Big Daddy G there, and just, it's, you know, again, when people think of the origin of Galactus, they may go for issue like 49 and 50 of FF. Those are the big ones. The first time it's told, this is sort of a retelling, but it's a more involved retelling, because this is that Marvel Saga series where, like, they delve into little crevices and bring out little bits and stuff that you didn't know about before, that wasn't shown in the original origin story. You know, they try to add a few more layers onto things to make it more interesting and more dynamic than you can probably get in, like, when you're doing like an issue like, say, the FF50, where you're like trying to cram in, oh, here's the Galactus battle, and we got the Surfer going bad on him, and we got all this, and then, oh yeah, we'll try to throw in a couple panels of Galactus's origin. And it's like, well, okay, technically that's his first origin story right there, but this like delves into it deeper, a more deeper dive into Galactus. And I think for that reason, again, this is another one. It's a book, Marvel Saga. Nobody cares about this book. These like the stuff $1 and $2 bins are made of, you know. And so you could probably grab a very nice copy of this. And again, it's the full origin of Galactus, you know. And again, if the movie hits and people love the FF and the way they handle Galactus in there, this could be another sleeper that ends up moving up the charts.
The interesting thing about collectors, what eventually happens is, if you go and they say, okay, I want to get the origin of Galactus, and you go back to, like you said, FF 48 and 49, it's too expensive for 95% of the collectors out there. So they're not going to go into that. Then you go into maybe the Thor issues in the late 60s that where Galactus guest starred, and they have his origin. Those still are between $300-400 books, depending on the condition they're in, maybe up to 500. And so still not that cheap. Then you can start looking at books in the 70s or 80s where you've got that same thing, and collectors will move into those eventually because they're affordable. And then when people start moving into those books, that's when they go up in price. So I think this is Marvel Saga, like you said, is a nowhere title but the fact that you've got a Galactus cover like this and a detailed Galactus origin in it makes it interesting. And certainly one that you could pick up dirt cheap. So you're not going to be out anything getting in on it.
And of course, if you can do that with Galactus, you got to be able to do it with the Surfer.
Man, I didn't realize Marvel Saga actually had some decent stuff in there. I never really paid attention to this book.
Yes, this is again, this is another one. It's another sleeper, the origin of the Silver Surfer. So I mean, just a key type of thing, but retold in a time when we already knew the basics of the origin. And again, they add little bits in here and there. Let's pump it up. Let's go a little more in depth. Parse it out a little more, give you some more stuff to add it in that you didn't know, and make it more interesting that way. And again, it just it's again, and that image, that cover, that's just you can't beat that cover. That just
no, that's
the cover
really
alone.
good.
So you want to buy that just to get that cover, you'd want to buy that issue.
Yeah, that's a strong image. Back when they used to remember how to do covers. Yeah, that's something that I would think the cover image alone. And again, you've got right now everything Galactus and Silver Surfer is getting looked at. I mean, everything is. So, and you got a cover like this, the strong image like this, that that's a safe bet, man. That's Art Adams. They said Arthur Adams inked by Lealoa. Yeah. I thought that Galactus head looked familiar to me, but it doesn't look as much like Arthur Adams because
Lealoa's inks.
Yeah, Lealoa's inks is not doing a traditional ink job over what you'd expect with Arthur. But that's it. That even makes it more interesting now that's a Arthur Adams cover. Very cool.
So yeah, there we go, folks. That's all the ones that I found. Like these are all very low key books. Probably spend less than $20 on any one of them. Probably even less than $15 on any of them. And you can get a very nice, high quality copy. And it'd be dirt cheap now. And who knows, in a few months here with this stuff, it could blow up. And then suddenly now, hey, look at this. We got this awesome book, and I bought it for like $5, 6 months ago, and now it's worth $35.